Section two of the agenda is to talk about the boat shrink wrap program that is new this year. Kathy Johnsrud is gonna introduce Sarah, and I'll have you take it away, Kathy.
You bet. Well, again, we extend a warm welcome to Sarah Bonlevay. Sarah is the Operations Program Coordinator for Minnesota's new Boat Wrap Recycling Initiative. And the name of that initiative is Wrap, Recycle, Right. Again, Wrap, Recycle, Right. Sarah works with Reverse Logistics Group, which is an extended producer responsibility. And Sarah's going to throw around EPR later in her presentation, and that again is extended producer responsibility service provider. And it's that group that is implementing and managing this new state required program. The way we met Sarah was that she sleuthed and found us. I did a short lightning round on the new boat wrap recycling law earlier this spring, and the magic of the internet connected us. And we had coffee a couple months ago and learned about her important role in this program. Prior to this role, Sarah spent over a decade in building expertise in logistics and business operations within Minnesota's craft. And it was mostly in the beer industry. And Sarah is pretty fun. So she's got that in her background. Outside of work, Sarah enjoys camping, reading, particularly science fiction, and cooking for her family and friends. She and her husband have a hobby farm in Wright County, which is home to goats, dogs, cats, chickens, and ducks, and anybody else who needs a meal and a warm home. She and her husband share a love for the great outdoors, and together they have two adult children. So, with that, Sarah, I will turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Kathy, so much. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Is everyone able to see my presentation? Great.
Looks real good,
Great.
Sarah. Looks great. Yep.
Great. Well, thank you once again, Mincola, for having me here to speak. I'm really excited to talk about Minnesota's boat wrap recycling program, Wrap Recycle Right. So I'll just dive in here. Okay, so today we're going to cover, like Kathy said, a quick background on EPR law and how we got here in Minnesota, a brief look at plastic film recycling, and an overview of the program. I'll leave some time at the end for questions if anyone has any of those. So let's dive in here. Okay, what is EPR? Like Kathy said, it stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. When products are hard to recycle or even landfill, some states or countries even will require the manufacturers to help fund collection and recycling of those specific materials. So EPR really shifts the responsibility from the consumer level and governments to the producers. And it can really create the circular economy where resources are being recycled and reused. We've seen EPR, it started in Europe over 30 years ago. It's been in Canada for 20 years. It's relatively new in the US. In the last 10 years, though, we've seen 146 laws passed that have covered over 21 different products. Kind of some of the key principles of EPR, again, is that producer responsibility. So companies really tasked with the management of their products after end of life. The cost internalization really shifts where the producers are sharing those costs. And then there is specific environmental goals usually laid out. So increased recycling rates, reducing landfill waste. It also can really encourage eco-friendly designs as the producers are trying to lower their impact and cost. Okay, so where are we in Minnesota when it comes to EPR? Starting in 1991, an EPR law around rechargeable batteries was passed. And then paint care, you'll see the paint stewardship law in 2013. A lot of people are in Minnesota are well versed in paint care. So when you buy a gallon of paint, there's usually a small recycling fee that helps offset a very larger paint recycling effort in the state of Minnesota. You can really return any unused paint almost anywhere in the state. That program has been highly successful in the state. It also operates federally in 8 other states. So in 2024, Minnesota passed the Boat Wrap Product Stewardship Program, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Okay, in early 2024, our state became the first U.S. state to pass a boat wrap EPR law, which created a stewardship program for the recycling of boat wrap. A few key milestones here. CIFRA was formed in February of 2025. CIFRA stands for the Commercial and Industrial Flexible Film Recycling Organization. Please say that a few times fast and you'll stumble on your words. But this really is the producer organization. And then in March, CIFRA submitted a plan to the MPCA, which is the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And then in August, that was approved. And then September 1st, the sales ban went into effect. This is probably the main, what I would say, the teeth of this law. The sales ban really says that no boat wrap can be sold into the state unless the producer of that boat wrap is a CIFRA member. And what that does is it's moving that cost burden to the producers, but they also are garnering the sales for the state of Minnesota. So, let's see. And also the law put out a few program goals. So we have a 50% recycle rate by 2030 to meet, and then an 80% recycle rate by 2035. If anybody wants to read the 70-page plan for this program, it is on the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's website. Okay, a little bit, I'm throwing around a bunch of acronyms and a bunch of organizations, so I just wanted to lay out kind of who's involved and why. I talked about CIFRA. They are that stewardship organization of boat wrap producers. Wrap Recycle Right is their branded name for the program that we're running here in Minnesota. Reverse Logistics Group, so that's me, that's who I work for. Like Kathy said, we are an EPR compliance provider. And in this particular state, we are assisting with the rollout and management of this particular program. And then there's the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. So this is the governing body that oversees compliance and enforcement for this particular law. Okay, let's talk a little bit about boat wrap statistics. So Minnesota has the second most registered boats in the US. We had about 800,000 in 2024. We're just behind Florida, and unlike Florida, we have winter that all of us are in, except Joe, I guess. He's in Arizona, so lucky him. There is an estimated 3.4 to 6.2 million pounds of boat wrap used annually in the state. Why does this matter? I'd like to walk you through the amount of plastic one 20-foot boat would use in 1 year. So average pontoon for 1 year uses about 20 pounds of plastic, and that equals 1,600 plastic bags, which equals 4 years of one American's average plastic bag use. If, let's say, 200,000 boats are wrapped yearly in Minnesota, which seems to be about what we have here, that's 80 million square feet of plastic, enough to cover 1,300 football fields. And for those that aren't sports-minded, that's 1,800 acres every year.
Wow.
Wow is right. That is a lot of plastic. So how do we get it recycled? I want to talk a little bit about the program logistics. It's what I am mainly in charge of for this program. First off, we're going to have the collection sites. So, boat wrap ready for recycling will be collected at marinas, dealers, storage facilities, county transfer stations, commercial shrink wrappers, and we're hoping to have even like a few collection events. Some sites will be open to the public and others will be private, especially for those large shrink wrap businesses. Our transportation is going to involve roll-off trucks for dumpsters, compactor trucks for certain county routes. There'll be self-haulers and semi-trailers again for those that are producing a high volume. Consolidation. So not all counties and businesses will use consolidators, but where they do, these facilities bale large amounts of plastic film to reduce the transportation cost. We've identified 7 facilities statewide, and so those will be used kind of as they need it and the logistics make sense. Finally, the recycling part. Currently, we have 2 recycling partners that can process boat wrap into new plastic film, creating the circularity we're aiming for. There are other recyclers out there, but we've kind of chosen 2 to move forward with. And as the program expands, we can bring more recyclers into the program. Okay, I'm going to take a quick detour and talk about how plastic film recycling works. There's a lot of misnomers out there. Lots of people believe that plastic doesn't actually get recycled. I am here to say it really truly does. I have had the privilege of visiting a bunch of facilities and really learning kind of where our product's going and what's going to happen to it and how that works. So here's a high level. First of all, the plastic film is fed into an industrial grinder and it's chopped up into small pieces called flake. And this makes it easier to clean and process. The second is a washing process, so where hot water and detergent is added. This step really dissolves all those adhesives from any type of labels. And when I'm talking here specifically about plastic film recycling, but most of this process is also used for other types of plastic recycling. There's a float and sink tank, so that's a way to divide up different plastics by density. After that, after the separation, the flake is rinsed and dried again, and then it is melted and pelletized. So the flake is melted and pushed through an extruder. And these pellets then become the raw material for new plastic products. So you can see that kind of on the image. That's that last kind of colorful stage there on the bottom right. So all different kind of pelletized plastics. Okay. Material handling. This is probably the most essential part of the program. So contamination is recycling's biggest enemy. And boat wrap comes with straps, hard plastics, debris, and all of this can ruin extruder equipment. So we really need to make sure that our boat wrap in the state is what we're calling recycle ready. That means there's no nylon strapping, buckles, zippers, vents. It's not extremely moldy and dirty, and there's not any additional non-boat wrap plastics kind of combined with the material. At Wrap Recycle Right, we have created kind of a step-by-step guide to walk boat owners and collection sites through how to properly prepare their boat wrap to be best recycled. It involves how to properly cut it off the boat, how to remove any type of the accessories, what the tape that's used in boat wrap, shrink wrap is absolutely recyclable. It's made out of LDP plastic. So yeah, and we're going to use this kind of rolling out to boat owners and those that get their boats shrink wrapped. Okay, so building a statewide recycling program for boat wrap is a big undertaking, and it's important to do it right. The Wrap Recycle Right program will grow in phases to ensure that it's convenient, reliable, and has long-term success. I'm sure I don't have to tell you all that these programs, they're big and they're difficult and they just take time. So currently we're in the planning and preparation phase. In 2025, we have developed collection site onboarding. I have been talking to a lot of haulers and consolidators and recyclers to really try to find the right partnerships for this program. Um, but 2026 is right around the corner. So that will be what we're calling our program year one. We're going to start small and build strong. First spring collection will begin, and we're going to focus on collection sites that already have experience with recycling this material and have a high interest in participating. So these 25 to 35 collection sites are kind of gonna pilot our best practices, and we're gonna learn a lot with them. Our public education is gonna focus heavy on the boat owner education and outreach, especially preparing the boat shrink wrap properly for recycling. And then we do want to create an online collection map with public drop-off sites and participating businesses. Year two, so this is 2027, we're going to be expanding access and improving convenience. We're going to expand collection sites. We're going to support our year one partners, and that's everyone from the collection sites to the haulers to the recyclers. So really kind of sending out surveys, gathering feedback, how we can improve this program. And then our goal from public education is to start to make that recycling for boat wrap owners a routine instead of something new. Okay, so for those of you who didn't see your county listed on either of those two slides, I just want to remind you that a program like this takes time. Building a statewide recycling program isn't just about adding locations. It's about creating a system that includes logistic partners too, and it has to work for all of those. It's great if we can collect that material, but if we don't have an end market for it, then the collection doesn't really mean anything. So the goal is recycling here, not just collecting. We're going to start small and we're going to grow strategically and ensure that the sites that are collecting are properly prepared and have the right equipment, that we're being efficient with transportation. And we're going to start with kind of the greatest need areas first and expand from there. So thank you all in advance for your patience and participation in Wrap Recycle Right. I'm sure it will be a great success for Minnesota's lakes, rivers, and communities. With that, I have a few reminders on how you can get involved right now. First off, stay informed. Our website is up and it's going to continue to grow with information as the program evolves. I talked about that map being added probably in February. We have some social media pages. You can sign up for our newsletter on the website, or you can always directly contact me with any questions. Secondly, please share the program with anyone or any business that you know that uses boat shrink wrap. We'd love to kind of, grow this, but we kind of need everyone's help on that. And lastly, if you shrink your boat, please recycle your wrap or use a shrink wrapper that participates in the program. And I just want to say, probably the most important piece is, keep doing the work you're doing for Mincola. Protecting our waterways takes a lot of people doing many small things, and I think if we can all play our part, we can keep Minnesota beautiful for generations to come. So, that's it. Thank you all for listening to my presentation on Wrap Recycle Right. I hope you were able to learn something either about the program or plastic film recycling, but feel free to ask any questions.
Well, great, Sarah. Thank you so much. Joe, I see a few questions in the chat. Is it okay if I work those through with Sarah and then we'll turn it back to you?
Yeah, and I probably have one at least for you as well, Sarah.
Great.
Okay. Well, one of the questions, well, first of all, Sarah, everybody loves you. They loved all the information that you provided here. Thank you so much. Another question that came in on the chat is, could you sort of give us the bumper sticker on the economics, both positive and negative motivating factors regarding recycling boat wrap? Again, economics, and what are some of the pluses and minuses for motivating?
Yeah, so I will say on the negative part, the legislation that was passed lacks a little bit of teeth. So there wasn't a landfill ban put in place. There wasn't any mandatory collection requirements. So we really have to kind of rely on people and businesses doing the right thing. So that's a little bit on the negative, and obviously collecting and moving material does incur costs. Most of these will be supported by the producer. I would say on the positive end, for the marinas and the shrink wrapping businesses, this program is covering all the collection costs. So, as long as they're willing to properly prepare their boat wrap for recycling, they'll have free collection. So that will cut down a lot on their just waste cost in general. Positive economics, I will say, I'll call this a positive. Right now, the end markets for plastic film recycling are okay. So we don't have to pay for this material right now to be recycled. Recyclers are willing to pick it up and kind of for the exchange of their transportation costs, then they get a free product to use to turn into more film. So end markets for plastics fluctuate a lot, and right now we're kind of in a neutral place, if that makes sense.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. Well, a couple more questions. We have a question here that sort of hits on the squishy part of the rollout. And the question is the program voluntary? Given only half the industry needs to participate in 2025, what's the right word to use for 2025 and
Mhm.
the requirement for recycling?
So, probably coming from my perspective, unfortunately, it is a voluntary program. Um, I'm hoping that Minnesota's feel that because it's a voluntary program, they feel, motivated to participate. Public education will be very important for this program's success. Um, when it comes to those kind of program goals, so those were set out by the legislation, that 50% recycling rate, that's not a collection rate, that is a recycling rate. So what that means is a few years from now, first off, we need to understand how much boat wrap is actually being sold into the state. Like I said in the beginning, I kind of said there's anywhere from 3.4 to 6.2 million pounds sold every year into the state. Um, that's a big that's a big gap in our knowledge. 50% of 3 million is very different than 50% of 6 million. So we're hoping to kind of understand that total in the next couple of years. Having that denominator then will allow us to achieve those percentage goals. So obviously the MPCA is the governing body and enforcement body on that. And we're going to be working hand in hand with them to kind of make sure that we're on target to hit those recycling goals.
Okay, I got two more questions in the chat. Let's start with the hard one first. That's sort of a crystal ball question for you, Sarah.
Love
Is
those.
there a yeah, shine it up. Is there a limit to the end market of the plastic collected?
Currently, no. It's one of the reasons I've chosen the two recyclers that have kind of stepped forward and are most interested. They have a lot of capacity to take a lot more. So right now, I'm not seeing any type of halt in kind of the amount. And here is the tricky thing about, I would say, plastics in general and films specifically. So film is lightweight and it's voluminous. So those are really hard to kind of move around. We don't want to pay for air. It's why the consolidation part is important for this program's logistics. So we actually need more volume to make this economic. You know, when we're moving semi-trailers full of baled plastic film to a recycler, that makes sense for the program and it also makes sense for the recycler because they're getting a lot of material at one time that they can use. So volume is actually our friend. And we're kind of balancing that also with making sure that we're not jumping the gun on this program and having a bunch of dirty and contaminated material that we're sending to the recyclers, because that will also kill this program too. If we're sending them stuff with ropes and straps and vents, they are going to bow out of this program as soon as they can. So it's a little bit of a balance of we want a lot of volume, but we need it recycle ready.
Great. Well, thank you. Joe, I have one more question in the chat, but how are we doing on time? Do we need to take that offline
You're
or
okay.
you
No,
okay?
you can take it. Take it.
One more. Okay, great. Well, so there's several comments in the chat how much they enjoyed your presentation and the great information. This last one kind of is maybe a good last question from the chat. And please summarize the underlying threat from the boat wrap. And then also sort of again, the bumper sticker on the intended purpose of the legislation. So
Hmm.
again, the threat of the boat wrap and the intended purpose of the legislation.
Okay, I'm gonna say threat of boat wrap maybe means kind of why don't we want plastic in our landfills?
Maybe just a high level, yeah, what
Okay.
it means and what it does. Yes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of counties that, a lot of our recycling efforts, our landfills, these are run by counties. And so the counties themselves are, they're looking at all the material that are coming into these landfills. Um, there is just a limited amount of landfill space that we have in Minnesota, and I think counties are currently looking at that capacity and saying, what can we pull out of the landfill stream right now? So we can kind of save the landfills for the material that we really do need to landfill. So I think, that is probably the largest threat of boat wrap. Obviously, you can get into talking about, breakdown and microplastics, but really, if you're talking about the economics, it's that counties don't want this material in their landfills. And they're well versed in that this does have a commodity value if we can get it recycled. So that to me is probably like the easiest threat of boat wrap. What was the intent of the legislation? I don't actually know. I wasn't involved in that part, so Reverse Logistics is not involved in any type of lobbying or the politics around EPR. We come in as a logistics support company, and so we're not really involved in that part. If I was to guess, I think the intent again is listening to the counties and all these solid waste managers and saying, hey, we get, thousands and millions of pounds of this plastic boat wrap every single year. And we don't really have the facility, we don't have the landfill space for it. So that would be my kind of first guess. And obviously, I think all of us are thinking about our single-use plastic. We're thinking about where does it go? And if we really want to build some of those circular economies, we have to start now, and we have to start with some materials. And You know, I was in fourth grade when recycling happened to my community, and it was in its baby stages of where we had to, plastic recycling wasn't even happening, but we had to divide up our glass and our aluminum. And now, fast forward many, many years later, and we have single stream recycling. So, you know, recycling's never perfect, but you do have to start to get somewhere. So.
Sure. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. There's a couple more questions in the chat. I think I'm going to recommend that I'll copy those and we'll work on those offline with the two questions because, Joe, I want to make sure we have enough time for Margaret
Yeah.
here. So,
Yeah.
Joe, we'll turn it back to you right now. Thank you so much, Sarah.